A common dilemma that many people going through a spiritual awakening journey encounter is going through periods of time where they feel disconnected from the collective, as well as disconnected from their empathic nature towards the collective. So today I'm going to be explaining exactly why sometimes we absolutely feel nothing within us when we're used to feeling so empathic and so deeply connected to the collective as well as the collective's experience. As our consciousness is expanding and our being is evolving, we go through different cycles. Some of those cycles are when a deep clearing is taking place within our energy field. Some of those cycles are when dormant information is being unlocked and even activated within our body-mind. And some cycles are less easy to pinpoint and put words to, but yet there's a deep transformation happening that doesn't actually feel like anything. And when we're in this phase, it can almost feel like we've lost empathy or we've lost contact and have disconnected from the collective and from the world. We could even think that we have had something wrong happen within us and that we don't feel anything. We could even mistake it for numbness. Now, numbness is its own issue that does happen to an awakening being as well as an unconscious being. But when we're going through specific phases where we're not necessarily numb, but we don't feel anything either, what's actually taking place in those times is we're deeply connected to our true nature, which is stillness. And stillness is very hard to grasp and to put words to. It's so elusive that sometimes we might even mistake it for being depressed. Because when we feel stillness, we're tapping into the no-thingness. It feels like no thing. And because of that, we don't feel joy the same way that we normally feel joy. We don't feel happiness. We don't feel even sadness in the same flavor that we experience sadness. We're almost in this twilight zone realm, actually, where it's hard to put anything into words as to how our physical body is being experienced, because it's not something that we've actually experienced before in the past. And so because of this new realm that we're operating in during this phase, we get scared that it could last forever and that now we just walk around feeling this disconnect from ourselves and from the world, or we could even experience it as being deeply sad. We put so many different emotional states and project them onto the stillness simply because we don't know what's happening. Unknowingly, we could even try to get out of this state by doing something that we were once very used to just in order to feel anything. This means that we could resort back to maladaptive and addictive behaviors from our past simply because those act as coping mechanisms to try to reorient us while we're in this phase of stillness. We could even fall back into past patterns that are detrimental just to pull us out of this state of stillness, because that's how unnerving it is to feel no thing. It's natural for us to be worried and confused when we're not feeling things the way that we once used to feel them, especially if we're empaths, and especially if we're currently not feeling anything at all. This could leave us in a state of fear that we're always going to be experiencing sensations of no-thingness, and that we're not going to be able to feel ever connected again to our own emotions and to the collective. But this period is usually what comes directly after a being has gone through a deep clearing within their energy field. So what you have is two expressions of our one eternal nature. And those two expressions are stillness and ecstatic. And when we're in our ecstatic state, that simply means that we're in a more active and vital state of being. So this is when we can feel very connected to the collective, very connected to our own sensory experience, where we feel the entire spectrum of our emotions, where we feel life. And then you have the second expression, which is stillness. And in this phase, we're connected more to our eternal nature. And our eternal nature isn't in such an ecstatic state. It's experienced more as devoid, silence, or even cold, which is why I call this state a cold flame. Because we have love in an active state and love in a non-active state. So you can look at it as love as a burning flame, which is what we typically know love to be when we think of love in all of the many areas of our life and how that applies to it. It's one of ecstatic nature, where we're deeply in a sensory feeling. And then you have the expression of love as a cold flame. And when it's in this state, it's vast, liberated, and unconditional. It's not experienced as any one thing because it is everything. And when it's everything, it doesn't feel anything. It is stillness. It's connected to the higher perception of the soul. We could even look at this as the state in meditation known as the witness. And when we have birthed the witness, it comes with this vast and open feeling of nothingness and of silence. And it's really hard to put into words, let alone try to operate the way that we normally operate in and feel the same way that we usually feel things in. And we're starting to accommodate this witness state into our everyday consciousness. So there's an integration that's happening in this cycle, typically after we have cycled out of a period of deep clearing. So what you have is during a clearing, that's experienced as really hot. There's like a burning because you're burning away, you're dissolving things within that time that are no longer serving your experience. So this could be habits, this could be connections, this could be belief systems, our worldview, past ambitions that we have outgrown or that have shifted. This can be several different things that are an accumulation of a deep clearing that's going on within the body, mind, spirit. And from that, it's like a burning phase because of all the clearing. So there's a lot of heat involved in that phase of dissolving versus this state where we're experiencing the complete opposite of a burning and a deep purging and clearing. In this form, we're experiencing vacancy, coldness, and a silence. And this is us communing with our eternal nature. To be precise, it is the liberation of the soul that is coming into the physical body and now merging and blending its nature with our human nature. So it's not that we're never going to experience our emotions again or the ecstatic expression of stillness. And it's not that we're never going to experience our empathy and deep connection to others as well as the collective again. It's just that during our awakening journey, we go through different cycles, and those different cycles prepare our energy field in different ways and by different means of experiences. So when we're in a phase of integration as deeply as the merging of more of our witness space into our everyday consciousness, we are going to have sensations that we've never experienced before and that even are experienced as not feeling anything. And when we're in that phase, the best thing that we can do to help this phase along in its integration process and its own development is by giving it the space literally that it needs in order for it to cycle out. Because the added pressure of needing to feel a certain way when we're not feeling anything is what compounds this phase and not only keeps us in it longer, but colors the experience we're having during it. Consciousness ebbs and flows, just like the tide, just like our emotions and energy. Because of that, we're going to experience our ecstatic expression of oneness with our still expression of oneness, and those two will oscillate and ebb and flow. So we're going to feel connected at stronger periods of our journey to the collective, and sometimes we're going to be in a deep integrative state where we're not going to feel it, and it's going to be experienced as disconnection, even though it's not, because during those times, it's consciousness, but consciousness and therefore love expressed as a cold flame. So you have love as a burning flame and love as a cold flame, and they're just different expressions of still the one nature of love. Sometimes we like to be of assistance and help this process along by being extra judgmental and hard on ourselves. But know that when we're in this stage of feeling nothing and then having the added pressure of trying to provoke ourselves into any type of emotional experience, or having to feel directly connected to other people or to even ourselves. What's actually happening is the ego is fighting what it perceives as its death. So when we're trying to cling on to how we once felt, worried that we will never feel again, or worried that we're not feeling exactly the same way that we are used to feeling, that's the ego trying to grasp, trying to hold on to different points of reference that it has so that it can sustain itself and its worldview. But allowing love to come through as a cold flame, one that is so unconditional, you could even call it empty. And that emptiness is still love. It just doesn't feel like anything. So we have two primary expressions of oneness. We have ecstatic and we have stillness. We go through different cycles along our spiritual awakening journey that are meant to focus on different aspects of our being to develop. We feel certain ways or certain states of consciousness that we have never priorly experienced before. We also feel different sensations based off of different phases of our journey. Consciousness evolves through a spiral motion, and we're going to have every type of experience activated within the full spectrum of this spiral, including the experience of not feeling anything, which is the emptiness that allows us to birth the witness state. And when we're experiencing the witness state, we're in the cold flame of love rather than the burning hot flame of love. So we still have a deep connection to the collective and to ourselves. We just can't sense it and we can't feel it the same way that we do when we're typically relating to ourselves, which is more from our human form. And because of that, what we're doing in this phase is merging our soul's essence with our human consciousness. This could also be perceived as periods where the ego is dissolving itself into the awareness of the higher self. What is asked of us during this stage of awakening is to surrender to the changes taking place and give this stillness or this lack of the usual stimulation we perceive, the assurance and the validation that it requires to feel safe enough to expand. The more we embrace the emptiness after shedding past versions of ourselves, the deeper our inner witness can relax into our physical body. This happens incrementally until the two states of consciousness, our everyday waking life consciousness and our higher self's consciousness, both merge. When consciousness is in the cold flame of love, we tap into how unconditional love is a love with no agenda, no judgments, and no limitations. Its only bias ultimately is whatever is for the highest good. I hope this has helped you welcome your witness. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for higher dimensional guidance through spiritual awakenings. See you next time.